So we now have a stipulation for the WWE Intercontinental Championship match at WrestleMania between Big E and Apollo Crews, because Apollo Crews versus Intercontinental Champion Big E at WrestleMania Night 2 will now be a Nigerian drum match. Yes, whatever that means, a Nigerian drum match. Now, Crews revealed the stipulation during a backstage segment on last night's edition of SmackDown on Fox. He noted, this is, and I'm not making this up, this is an ancient jewel created by his ancestors for people who have been wronged as a way to make things right. He said there will be no rules and no limitations, just beating so loud it will sound like the beating of drums. It essentially, to cut through all of that, it's a no disqualification. It's a no disqualification match. It's anything goes. Apollo Crews' gimmick is that he's embraced his Nigerian ancestral roots. He now speaks with a Nigerian accent, so I guess they've got to throw something on there. That's what that is. It's a Nigerian drum match. To be honest, I mean, there is so much to break down about that, and we will be talking a little bit more about WrestleMania after this, especially when it comes to ticket sales, because there's some interesting information when it comes to the ticket sales. When it comes to this Apollo Crews Big E match that's happening at WrestleMania, look, I'm happy that the Intercontinental Championship is being featured. I think that's important to state. The Intercontinental Championship has a really sort of love-hate relationship with WrestleMania. Obviously, it's been part of some of the most iconic matches in WrestleMania history. When you talk about the WrestleMania 10 ladder match, or Hulk Hogan versus the Ultimate Warrior, WrestleMania 6. I mean, that's WWE title versus Intercontinental title. All that kind of stuff. It's really got a real rich history of WrestleMania, that's no doubt, but especially in more recent years, we've seen situations where it's not been featured on the show, or for a period of time it hasn't, but it also has some excellent matches on the show. When they had the back-to-back ladder matches, WrestleMania 31, WrestleMania 32 for the Intercontinental Championship. WrestleMania 34 opened with an excellent match for the Intercontinental title, that triple threat match between Seth Rollins, The Miz, and Finn Balor. That was excellent. So I'm happy to see the Intercontinental Championship featured. I'm happy to see it featured on SmackDown. I'm happy to see it featured in a feud where both wrestlers really, really want to have it. It feels like a prize. It feels like something that they both want to attain, and I think that's very admirable from WWE, and I'm happy to see that. When it comes to this Apollo Crews new character that has manifested itself recently on WWE television, look, I'm happy that he's getting screen time. I'm happy that he's got a character and a gimmick that he feels like he can really get himself, sink his teeth into, as it were. That accent is just horrific. I mean, it really is horrific. Not the Nigerian accent itself. Apollo Crews doing his version of a Nigerian accent is horrendous. I mean, it's interesting because I look at the replies. I always try to gauge what everyone else is thinking before. I have my own opinions, obviously, but I like to see if they line up with other people, or a lot of the time I'm really happy to see people have different opinions to myself, because I think that's what makes pro wrestling so great, is difference of opinions and expressing why you have that version of your opinion. So I was looking at the responses and the replies to some of these Apollo Crews segments last night, and universally, I mean, I'm talking 99.9% of people were saying, man, that accent is horrible. Again, not the Nigerian accent, Apollo Crews doing his version of the Nigerian accent. And in fairness, some people were saying, well, look, he's not an actor. And he's not an actor, but if you're WWE, if you're the WWE officials, if you're the writing staff, if you're Bruce Pritchard or you're Vince McMahon, surely it's in your best interest to set your talent up to succeed. It's in the best interest to make good television, to make good content. And every time I listen to these Apollo Crews promos, the way that he recites the lines or he delivers the promo is fine, and I think his body language and the way that he holds his character, I think that's very good. And obviously he's trying his very best to make this work, but the accent, he's just not very good at it. That's the problem. He's just not very good at it. And I know it's probably rich. I can't do a Nigerian accent, but I don't try and speak in one. That's the problem. And if someone asked me to, I would say no, because I can't do that. I'm not very good at doing it. That's the problem. And I think back to Brody Lee, and when he left WWE, he spoke about the conversations he had with Vince McMahon and what Vince McMahon's image of him was, his character he wanted to see him portray on WWE television. And he said, I see you, Luke Harper, speaking with a southern accent. And Brody Lee said, I appreciate that, sir, but I'm from Rochester, New York. I'm not from any of the southern states of the United States. I don't have a southern accent. I don't have a strong New York accent, but I don't speak in a southern accent, and I can't do that. And Vince McMahon would huff and he would puff and he would throw his hands up in the air, and we saw how it ended with Luke Harper in WWE. He went to AEW and had great success there. And I think if it's kind of the same, I don't know, and I don't know the backstage interactions about this Apollo Crews gimmick. I don't know if it was something like he said, look, I've got this Nigerian heritage, could I do a character? And then someone said, could you speak with a Nigerian accent? And it's sort of like, well, I can, but I don't know if it's any good, you know, that kind of thing. I just, when I see stuff like that, it does make you wonder. So I think that would be my response to that is, you know, just... That's my main issue with this. It's just as a viewer, when you're watching any form of professional wrestling or any form of television, to be honest, when you're watching that, you want to be able to emotionally invest in what you're watching. You also want to be able to not sit there and think, man, that performance isn't good. If you're watching Falcon and the Winter Soldier and you're visibly aware that what you're watching is acting and bad acting, it takes you completely out of what you're watching. You're no longer immersed in the universe or immersed in the setting or storyline that you're watching. It just becomes bad television. And I'm not saying that what Apollo Crews is doing is bad television. It's just, I don't think he's being put in the best position to succeed. I think that's the problem. I think that's the problem there. Now, maybe the hope is that after a while he'll become really good at it. His accent will improve. I don't know. Maybe he's working with an accent coach. If I was WWE and I really had my heart set on making this accent work, this character work, I would say, look, can we get him a dialect coach? Can we get him someone that can help him improve with the Nigerian accent, something? And maybe they are doing it. And if that is the case, then that's credible as well. I think also fundamentally, in terms of the logic of the storyline as well, this is another issue that I have with it, is how many chances is Apollo Crews going to get? Right, we've been doing this storyline since January now, and a big frustration on my part is that he's lost over and over and over and over again. He continues to lose, and continues to lose in championship matches against Big E. And if that's the case, you would say, if this was any other form of combat sports, if this was the UFC, you wouldn't have someone lose they wouldn't even lose twice. If they lost twice in a row, that would be it. Forget about it. But you wouldn't have someone lose 3-4 times and then be like, we're going to get you another title shot. They'd be like, no, not consecutive. You have to earn your way. And I think that's my problem with this is, I know the reason, frankly, they're adding this stipulation is because they want to make it seem different to the other matches that they've had. Because they've all been sort of singles matches with no stipulation on top of it. The issue is that, like I said, it really becomes a case of, we've seen it, it's all right, it's fine, but we've seen it. It doesn't make it must see. Just putting a stipulation on top of it doesn't make it, oh well, we haven't seen this before, that's WrestleMania worthy. I think that's an issue that I have with that one. Again, I think Apollo Crews, I'm glad to see him be featured. I think he's a tremendous talent. I think he's always needed some form of a gimmick, and I think he's always needed to improve his promos. I think his promos were getting there on Monday Night Raw last year as the United States champion. I think he did very well. I think he did very well as the US champion during a difficult time during the pandemic where there were no fans. I think having a character he can fully sink his teeth into is absolutely beneficial for him. I just don't know if the whole accent is really the way to go. I just don't see that as being beneficial for him going forward. That would be my reaction to that one. Now, speaking of reactions, and again, I did want to talk about this before we wrap it up. I wanted to talk about WrestleMania tickets, because WrestleMania, of course, marks the first time that WrestleMania, or WWE rather, is going to have live fans on WWE programming in over 12 months. It's a big deal. It's a really big deal. There were lots of numbers floating around about how many fans they wanted inside Raymond James Stadium on both nights. At one point, they wanted 45,000 fans during a pandemic on each night, 90,000 total. Obviously, there probably would be a lot of duplicates there, but my point being is that was crazy. But we have a bit of an update when it comes to it now, because WWE reportedly has less than 2,000 total tickets left for WrestleMania 37 as of yesterday, with just a few days to go until the grandest stage of them all opens up once again for the WWE Universe. Now, it was reported on Friday by the Wrestling Observer newsletter that WWE had 1,000 tickets left for Night 1 and 809 tickets left for Night 2. Now, most of the WrestleMania 37 tickets were sold in the pre-sale. Night 1 and Night 2 of WrestleMania 37 from Raymond James Stadium in Tampa will likely be sold out of their next allotment of tickets that were originally put on sale by next weekend, but that exact number is still unknown. Now, in terms of internal reaction from the WWE higher-up and hierarchy to these ticket sales, it was noted that some expected the company to draw an immediate sellout, like UFC 261 recently did in Jacksonville, with a huge demand for the first events allowed to have fans in the crowd since the COVID-19 pandemic hit last year. However, of course, this was not the case for WrestleMania, and there is some disappointment that it did not happen that way. Now, on a related note, there are several prices being advertised for the WrestleMania 37 broadcast on pay-per-view. WWE is still promoting that WrestleMania is exclusive to Peacock and WWE Network, but the show is still being sold through multiple pay-per-view providers. AT&T Uverse is charging $35 per night, while DirecTV is charging $34.95 per night. In Demand is charging $29.99 per night, and Vubiquity is charging $29.97 per night. The Dish Network is charging $60 for both nights. Man, there's a lot of pay-per-view providers in the United States. We don't have that issue over here in the UK. So when it comes to the ticket sales, WWE executives, higher-ups are saying that they're disappointed that the ticket sales didn't sell out immediately like that, like they seemingly have for the UFC event. I've mentioned my points and my feelings when it comes to that UFC event. I still think it's crazy. I still think it's madness about that UFC event and how it sold out so quickly. I think one could argue, if you put all of that aside, you know, the pandemic stuff aside, which I don't think you should, but let's put that aside, the officials there are upset that it didn't sell out immediately, and they're disappointed that it didn't sell out immediately. It is going to sell out, of course, eventually. I think that they would have hoped that with the big demand and it being that there hasn't been any fans in attendance for over 12 months, they thought as soon as we put this on sale, they're going to disappear like that. I think they shot themselves in the foot, frankly. I mean, if you think about it, it really is their own fault. It's their own fault because no one really knew what was going on with the ticket sales. They were originally supposed to go on sale on one date. They were delayed and it was moved to another date. There was rumours of 45,000 fans, and then 25,000 fans, and then how many fans across 2 nights? What's going on? It wasn't totally clear, and I think they only have themselves to blame. You can't be disappointed they didn't sell out when you weren't transparent or you weren't clear about when they were going on sale, how many were going on sale, all that kind of stuff. Again, you have to look at yourselves. You have to look at yourselves and you have to say, well, that's probably our doing. And it is. It's probably their doing. That's the reason why. And ultimately, they're going to sell out. I think in terms of the finance side of things, they're going to sell out. So they're going to get their money's worth. I think they would have just hoped from a PR perspective, from a marketing perspective, that they could release these big PR statements, or they could release these press releases across social media and to a variety of outlets saying, not only are fans returning to WWE programming, not only are fans returning to WrestleMania, but they sold out like that because the demand's so big. Everyone's so desperate to go to WrestleMania. In reality, again, I don't think they factored in that if you mess up the ticket dates, or if you change the dates, if you move the goalposts, as it were, you're going to have some problems too. I don't think they realise that there is still a lot of hesitancy about going to live events. And, you know, this is WWE's first live events with fans in attendance, and I think some might be slightly hesitant and saying, well, how good are WWE going to be at this? Are they going to do this right? Are they going to be safe? All that kind of stuff. People are still very hesitant, and absolutely they should be. Absolutely they should be. So I think when it comes to that, again, there is probably some disappointment from WWE. Ultimately, though, you have to blame yourselves. If it was a smooth, slick process, and they were very transparent about when they were going on, how many, by what date, and saying that they're going to go quickly, all that kind of stuff, I think there would have been a different scenario, but there wasn't, because it was completely messed up. WrestleMania tickets are going on sale, and then suddenly Tom Phillips says on Monday Night Raw, not quite yet. We're still working some things out. In reality, I think it was John Alba, local Florida reporter, who said actually the reason they got delayed is because the contract wasn't even signed between the state of Florida and WWE at that point, because they hadn't finalized how many tickets were going to be allowed at the event. Again, how can you blame anyone but yourselves? If you weren't on top of that, that's your problem. And I think, frankly, WWE wanted 45,000 tickets for both nights, again, which is insanity during a pandemic at any stage. But, I mean, they're struggling. They're not struggling. They will sell out the 25,000 per night. But imagine if it was 45. We'd be in a completely different situation right now. because you can't tell me that they'd have all 45,000 fans sold out on both nights. So maybe they misjudged their drawing power as well. There's lots of different ways to look at that one, and it certainly is going to be interesting. Nevertheless, the atmosphere this time next week is going to be fantastic for both nights of WrestleMania. We'll be doing watch-alongs and previews and all that fun stuff here on the channel. It's a big week in the world of pro wrestling. There is a lot going on in the world of pro wrestling right now, and there will be in the next 7 days. So if you haven't already, be sure to subscribe, bottom right-hand corner. Make sure you click that notification bell because there's going to be a lot going on. But of course, as always, it's just one man's opinion. What are your thoughts on Apollo Crews challenging Big E to a Nigerian drum match at WrestleMania for the Intercontinental Championship, and the internal reaction to the WrestleMania 37 ticket sales? Be sure to get involved in the comment section below. I'll do my best to respond and reply to all of your comments. Really enjoy interacting with you guys, talking about WWE, AEW, Impact Wrestling, New Japan Pro Wrestling, all things pro wrestling here on the channel. So be sure to get involved in the community. Drop a comment below. All opinions are welcome. If you have enjoyed this video, please do smash a like on the like button too. Really does help us out here on YouTube, go up the rankings and get into people's recommendation feeds if they haven't seen our videos previously. But most importantly, if you haven't already, please do subscribe to Wrestle News 365. You can do that by clicking the bottom right hand corner of the screen right now, or if you wait a few seconds, there'll be a subscribe button at the end of this video, along with another video for you to watch. Thank you very much for watching, listening, streaming, or however you come across this video today, and I'll speak to you again very, very soon.
Hey guys, thank you for watching, listening, streaming, or however you come across this video today. Be sure to click on the video on the right there to watch our next video, or click the bottom there to subscribe, or the bottom right hand corner. Thank you very much, and I'll speak to you again very soon.